Hey guys, welcome. It's me, Spencer, and this is Sketchaday. It's a brand new week, and I'm really excited to go over today's topic. It's a really simple tool that you can use to create some cool sketch effects with some markers and pencil. And what we'll be using today is colored paper. So I've got a bunch of colored paper here. We're going to sketch, look at a few ways to use this tool, and see if we can come up with something cool in the end. So grab some pencils. If you've got colored paper, you can grab that too, but if not, don't sweat it. You can still kind of follow along using a similar technique. So to get into it, I've sketched out a few shapes here, a cylinder and a kind of cube form, and I'm going to render those. But first, let's talk about how I use my tools on colored paper. So you can kind of think of colored paper like you would in something like Photoshop when you set your background a certain color. We're just going to be using lights and darks to create form and render. So, for example, if I wanted to show the edge of some surface, I could take a simple pencil, okay? This is just one tool, and I could start to shade, okay? And hopefully you can see this well enough on the overhead, but as I start to shade, essentially what I'm trying to communicate here is that, and in conjunction with a little bit of line work here, just to crisp this up, it's like, oh, there's some surface right here on this paper. So if you do this lightly enough with the pencil, you can kind of generate that effect of a surface change or difference in surface. So now I can take a white pencil, for example, and start to shade on top of this colored paper. And again, if I'm careful and just really light with my pressure, you can see that now I've essentially got two surfaces, one going this way and one going that way. So we can really easily and quickly pull some three-dimensionality from this paper. You might have seen videos on YouTube or other social media with people doing realistic renderings. This is one really good way to do that, is take a toned piece of paper and start to manipulate light and shadow with dark and light tools. So, for example, I've got here with me some Graphmaster markers. You can check them out at graphmastermarker.com. And if I use this 20% gray marker, I can kind of achieve a similar effect on the paper. What's nice about the marker is that the pigment in the marker actually tends to blend with the tone on the paper. So as I shade this in right here, you can kind of see that now I've got, and if I just put a little bit of an outline here, okay, I'm starting to create and show form. And I can even use the same marker on the other side here. If I just go over it once, it's going to give me a lighter tone. I can wait till this side dries, and I can even jump up to, say, this 30% gray marker. Hit this far side just a little bit, and you'll see that now I'm starting to get some contrast. And remember, when we have contrast in our drawing, it's going to communicate form and three-dimensionality. A little bit of white pencil here toward the front, and fade that out, and you can see now I'm starting to show some really nice form development on this toned piece of paper. Okay, great. So what about these two forms that I sketched? I've got a cylinder, kind of went over the square here, but I want to show you a couple other things to help you really pop these drawings off the page. So we'll start with our 20% gray, and I'm going to start with the box, and let's assume that our light source is coming from the top and to the right. So to render this, the top surface is going to be lightest. I'm going to start with the side furthest away from my light source. And just shade this in. If you need some tips about how to use your markers with paper or any kind of rendering, you can watch some of my other videos. In fact, most of my videos are organized into playlists, so you can actually go take a look at those, and you'll see that there's a section about marker rendering. Okay, so already you can see I've got a nice shadowed side. And let's actually use a lighter marker. Let's go to our Cool Gray 1 here. And I'm just going to apply some of this ink to my sheet of paper. And again, you'll see this will blend, get a little bit lighter, kind of blend together, puffing those fumes. These markers have a little bit of a fume to them. But again, you can see these are starting to blend really nicely. If you want to push one side or the other, or even check your work, you can always squint and take a look at that, or take a step back from your work and you'll see if your contrast is reading well enough. Okay, so I've got my two faces here. So what I'm going to do is just take my pencil and just lightly over this one face, just really lightly. I mean, it's almost like a feather was coming down and just hit the ground ever so lightly. That's how I'm holding my pencil. Really, really lightly. And you'll notice I'm holding my pencil about halfway up the pencil or even more. And that's going to help me be even lighter on that tip. So just lightly shading on the tip of my pencil, adding a little bit of tone away from the corner. The reason I'm shading away from the corner is that there's light in this environment that's perhaps hitting this surface and reflecting into the side of my cube here. So just having that gradient is going to help with the realism of this quick render. Okay, ever so lightly. It'd be even better if I had a reddish brown pencil, something like that, and I could add some tone here. But for now, we'll keep it simple. So now on the top edge, I'm going to come in with some white and just shade from this corner and away to the back, okay? And this is going to help with the contrast of the overall drawing, especially toward the front here, okay? So just pay attention. You'll see that the coincidence of these three values coming together and hitting that contrast is creating a really nice subtlety to the entire drawing. Now, if this is resting on a surface, I'm gonna have a surface shadow right underneath. So I'll just sketch that in with a 50% gray. Okay, something like that. And if I want to do something like show a reflection or maybe shadow this side of the drawing, I can do that as well. For my reflection, you could use a black or white marker. Since this is or pencil rather, since this is the dark side of my cube, I'm just going to use some black here, just ever so lightly. It's really, really subtle, okay? But I just want to hint that there is perhaps a reflection. Now we can kind of clean the entire thing up. If you think about objects in the real world, nothing has a perfectly straight, sharp edge, because otherwise we'd just be bleeding all the time. So whenever I render or sketch something with sharp edges or straight edges, I tend to imagine that there's a little bit of an easing to that edge, a little bit of a round. And on that round edge, I'm going to get a little bit of highlight happening. So just on these edges, I'm going to hit, especially toward the light source, I'm going to hit those with a little white pencil. Okay, ever so lightly. And that's going to help really pop this off the background. We'll use a different technique with the cylinder on top, but hopefully you get the idea. If this is in an environment, I can take something like this 10% gray and kind of hit the background here, maybe fade this out. Just do something kind of cool with your markers. Especially on this paper, it really does a nice job of blending your marker as you apply it. So if you want to do something a little bit more freeform for your background, you're welcome to do that. But again, now you can see that value is really starting to bring this cube out from the page quite a bit more. So with tone paper, you can get some really nice subtle effects, or you can go with even more contrast. So for example, I'm just going to take one marker, okay, and I'm going to render this cylinder. So let's take our 30% gray, and I'm going to start with my core shadow. So in this case, my light's actually coming from the top and to the left. So starting with my core shadow, I can kind of work this back and forth and down a little bit, and all the way around till I get to the top here, and I'm going to leave a gap, okay? So if this were a little bit shiny, it's going to be kind of a streaky cylinder. and I'm gonna get a nice coarse shadow right in there. On this face, I'm gonna start shading this in from the top, like so, and gradate as I come to the bottom. Okay, because remember, if this is sitting on a surface, I'm gonna get some reflected light. Okay, so I've kind of got this worked in right now, and now I can take like my white pencil here, and on this highlight area, just kind of work this in and start really building this out, okay? So start light till you get it right, okay? Because you can always fix mistakes if they're not too intense or too purposeful. And then kind of work it down. And now, on the flip side, where my shadow core is, I'm gonna come in with my pencil and kind of hit this and create a gradient down to the bottom, okay? But just by hitting this top to bottom, and I've got the marker, you can see I'm really starting to pull some form out. Well, what if I want this to kind of pop off the page a little bit more? Well, I do have this white pen that I use from time to time, and so I'm just gonna create a little bit of an outline here. And you can see this is really starting to pop off the page. Okay, now I wouldn't have white all the way around, so I'm going to actually go dark toward the bottom. Let's use this 80%. Went a little bit too far with the white on the top, but just use this 80% gray here. Okay, now I have a cool outline around this product, or this thing rather. And you can see, again, just by playing with that contrast, you can really create some pop in your sketches if you do them on colored paper. So again, colored paper is a fun way to approach realism in some ways. It gives you a nice base tone you can work with, and you actually don't have to put down too much pigment or pencil to really get what you're after, which is pulling three-dimensional form out of a simple two-dimensional medium like a piece of paper. Well, thanks for watching. Hopefully this has been informative. If you like what you see, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm here at youtube.com/sketchaday.com. You can also find me on Facebook at facebook.com/sketchaday. And Facebook does this weird thing where unless you actually click the button that says liked, after you click like, go down to notifications and select all the options, you actually won't see very many updates from me. So if you'd like to see the pictures I post or comments, statuses, that kind of thing, then you'll want to select those options. Also, I just found out on Instagram, I'm at sketchaday.com on Instagram, you can turn on notifications. So if you want to see every time I post, you can select that option and you'll get notified. I'm also on Twitter at Daily Sketches, or you can feel free to reach out to me by email at sketchthis@sketchaday.com. Sorry, brain fart. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you guys next time right here on Sketchaday.